There are a couple cars that have aged like a fine wine. The Mark IV Supra is probably like the most popular one out there, but you also have other cars like the 3000 GT VR4. Look up those prices and cry just a little bit. But there's another one out there that a lot of people have never forgotten, that have always appreciated in value, and that just never seem to be going away from any major automotive TikTok out there. I'm Alex, Alex.fi on Instagram, and today's episode of Behind the Wheel, we're gonna be taking a look at RB's Honda/Acura NSX. So RB's NSX has airlift 3P management. It's got the D2 air struts, the APR GT500 wing. It's got the sequential taillights, underglow, of course. Lots of carbon goodies like the carbon dash. You also have the intakes, wireless Apple CarPlay. 2015 is back and added. 6-speed NSX R swap, an ARC aluminum radiator, custom trunk setup, Rotiform SJC 3-piece wheels. The fronts are 18x9 plus 17s with two 1530s, and the rears are 19x10.5 plus 15, two 5530s. Probably one of the best things about the NSX is just this specific one is pretty much all done in the red gray carbon color combo. So you got the wing in carbon, you've got the rear intake in carbon. If you look down at the wheels, those are in the gray, the double dark tint, the gloss and the satin. You got right-hand drive instead of left-hand drive, which is actually not as desirable, which is actually very, very weird. But then if you guys keep looking up the front, you also see that RB took care of his windshield wipers, because who needs to drive the car in the rain with windshield wipers? And overall, the entire car is just sleek, low, and simple. The biggest thing out of this entire car probably is the wing. I think one of the coolest cars about the NSX, I think one of my favorite things about the NSX is its attention to detail, like all the littlest stuff. Now I gotta be careful because there's like no space in this car. Okay, careful, Alex. Oh, it's like a 10-point turn with your body. And the microphone, because it doesn't fit in the seats. Takata. All right, let me get this on. That was pretty easy. I'm not a huge fan of racing harnesses, I'm just gonna say it. I never really have been. I think they're kind of unnecessary for street cars. That is just my opinion, take that as you will. Mostly because the time it takes to actually get this dialed in for my scrawny little body. I done it the wrong way, son of a... There we go. So now that we've officially done a 10-point setup, are we ready to drive this car? Are we ready? Colin, you ready? Right-hand drive. One of the questions a lot of people ask, just so you know, 10 seconds, right-hand drive. Look down, see this? Good. It means that you throw away to get into first. It's not this way like a lot of people think. This specific one, since it has the NSX R 6-speed in it, you have a little flippy switch. This is to actually get the car to go into reverse when you want to get in reverse, because otherwise if you go down this way, right now it's in 6th gear. If you do it this way and you put her down, now she's in reverse. So it's really important that you remember that, otherwise things are gonna get a little bit funky. So we're ready to go. Let us see, can Alex get the car off a roll without killing it with shoes that he definitely shouldn't be wearing. All right. If you can do it off the start, you're pretty much good for the rest of the time, but we'll see. Hell yeah. We're out. We're out, we're at 'em. No, seriously, the one thing I love about the NSX is its history. It is an absolutely incredible story. If you guys haven't followed why the NSX was built, it was essentially an experimental class for Honda. Honda wanted to show the world that it too could make a supercar with regular old daily driving reliability, and it did just that. Now, this specific car is pretty damn loud. RB already told me about it. Mid-engine, probably an exhaust diameter that's a little bit too big for it, but for the most part, it's not too shabby. When the NSX was originally developed and it was introduced, it featured some of the greatest marketing that probably a car manufacturer ever had. It had Ayrton Senna personally help develop the car. It had all of the right pieces. It had a redefined engine, the location of where it was put, how they shaped this car out, what they did to make sure that everybody knew that at end of the day, although it was still a supercar that came with some pretty intense pricing, it was still a reliable Honda. I mean, that at the end of the day is why so many people love these cars. It's probably the reason why I personally would probably take this over my little gray counterpart that likes to brake a lot more often than I care to admit. RB's already told me he's taken this car 14 hours across the country. He's taken this thing absolutely everywhere. Short of a couple issues here and there, the car has done its job. I mean, it's a Honda. This specific one, obviously, on the air suspension, it's a little bit different than the OEM. And from a appreciation standpoint, not a lot of people are going to buy a modified NSX as much as they want to go get a unmolested automatic or manual version that has absolutely nothing done to it. But the car still features some of those 90s vibes that I think it just needs to shake, and it only shakes it with just a little bit more aggressive items. And those aggressive items are the wing, the splitter, the front lip, all of that sort of stuff, the side skirts, everything on the car just kind of brings it all together, which it definitely needs, because I love an NSX just as much as the next person, but when you're looking at them stock, they're not as beautiful on the eyes anymore. Hello? Now, one of the biggest questions a lot of people ask about the NSX is it worth the money? Is it worth $50,000? Is it worth $60,000? Is it worth $80,000? And a lot of people have the wrong mentality about whether this car is worth that amount of money, because when you're looking at the horsepower, the answer would be, well, no, it's not worth it. When you look at the technology or the refinement, the answer again is still no. You're looking at a $70,000 car. There is a lot of cars out there that you can get for probably half that price, like a ZL1 or a Camaro or Corvette, that are still going to outperform this car, that still look pretty darn good. But you're not getting an NSX because you want it to be the fastest. You're definitely not getting an NSX because it's, you know, the meanest. You're getting an NSX because it's just a part of automotive culture. It shares a story that very few other cars ever shared. It's one of the most successful supercar fighters out there, probably one of the best looking supercar fighters out there. And even if you look at the newer generation NSXs, they didn't really hit the mark, at least right now, in the same way that the first gen and second gen NSX did. Daily drivability on Honda should be pretty much self-explanatory. They're absolutely incredible. It's still a Honda, so you got nothing to worry about. Modifications are pretty much everywhere, but they're only from very specific people. The market isn't necessarily massive when it comes down to modifying your NSX, and because of that, one of the biggest cons with these cars is actually dealing with the pricing that can come from that. Parts get extremely expensive on the NSX because, well, there's not a lot of people that make stuff for these cars, and if there's only a couple, they can pretty much charge whatever they want to. The NSX is a beautiful car. It definitely gets the job done. RB's done a fantastic job specifically with this car. And although it doesn't have 500 horsepower, and although it doesn't have, you know, the fancy suspension systems that a lot of the other cars have these days, it still is a properly fun car to drive, and it just has the right level of 90s. I mean, even though you are paying an incredible sum of money for a car like this, not including the mods, just a stock NSX, you still get the good old 90s, like black leather. You're still gonna get the same pieces where you kind of have to, there's a couple cracks and nicks and things that will just always be there because the car is just older. It just has spent its time living life. I mean, even when you roll up the windows, the most hilarious thing to me is rolling up the windows in a 90s car just to see how fast they actually go up. Like, that's not bad, but it's not necessarily the fastest thing in the world. A lot of people have the biggest gripe with the NSX and other cars like it because of the price. Supra, same thing. NSX, same thing. VR4, same thing. FDRX7, same R33 GTRs, R32 GTRs, same thing. All of them are getting incredibly expensive. All of them are appreciating in value, and people are collecting these cars, and they're not modifying them, and they're not driving them, and they're turning into Italian versions of collecting supercars. Like, it's just what people are wanting to do. What makes me so happy about this specific car is that RB's not doing that. He drives this car everywhere. He takes it everywhere. He drives it hard everywhere. He has fun with it. And even though I had to get him up at 6 o'clock in the morning to come up here, he did it, and he drove the car up here. He didn't trailer it, and that's what's so awesome about this. Is the car perfect? No. It still features some of the pretty weird quirks and features, as Doug would probably say, that would make it a difficult car to drive in all scenarios. But does it capture an emotion that very little cars do to this day? Absolutely. I would pair this to the kind of car that you'd probably capture maybe in an air-cooled 911 or an older supercar. But you get it in a Honda. You get to drive, you get to experience everything that's made supercars and sports cars great in a Honda, in the best version of a Honda. And to have a car like this is just nuts. To have the wing and all that stuff, regardless of all of that, whether you're about it or not about it, the coolest thing is that you get to own a story. And the story of this car is incredible. Probably the biggest downfall of an NSX is its initial price to get in there and the price of actually owning it with all of the modifications. It's just an expensive car to own, but it is probably one of the most refined Japanese cars that you can buy. It's one of the most stylish, one of the most iconic. You can put this thing right next to a brand new Ferrari and it's still gonna look practically new. The level of detail that RB put into the car and making sure that it was aftermarket but not in your face is probably one of my favorite things about this specific car. The driving experience is awesome. The air suspension doesn't take away from it at all. The wheel sizing doesn't take away from it at all. And even though it's a little bit loud on the inside, it's still a fantastic car. It features the iconic 90 push buttons and the slower windows up and down, but it has everything you need to have a good time. When it comes down to execution of the build and the build itself, I give this one a 29 out of 30 because it's practically perfect. -1 point because it only costs an arm, a limb, and probably something that men have to actually end up buying one of these that you're gonna have to sell on the black market. In all honesty, the NSX is probably the definition of a Ferrari fighter, but the problem is how long is the Acura going to last, or the Honda going to last, especially with the newer generation being such a flop, because you can actually get a first generation NSX is more expensive than a brand new NSX, and it begs the question on whether it's